for watching Slice of SciFi. I'm Noah Richmond.
And I'm Daren Goldsvik.
Talking about Dark Phoenix, the absolute, what will we call it? The
final
culmination of Fox's
X-Men.
Right. I mean, let's think how far back does that go? Was that like
what timeline are we talking?
I mean, how long Fox had rights to the X-Men was cranking out those X-Men movies? It's got to have been
Bryan Singer,
20 years.
When Bryan Singer did the first one, it was early 2000s, and then X-Men 2, and then of course the debacle Last Stand, which Trent. Well, who was it? Brett Ratner, right? Yeah. And then of course you had the first X-Men, which was really good. You remember that one? Matthew Vaughn directed that one.
Yeah, First Class was really good.
And then, of course, then you had...
And Days of Future Past was fantastic.
And then Apocalypse.
But then we had X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse. So that kind of brings me to my starting point where it comes to this film, which is essentially... I had been pretty much a fan of the X-Men reboots, going with First Class and also going into Days of Future Past. Really top notch, really some of the best films that I thought had been put out in the superhero genre. But I was so disappointed with Apocalypse, and when I heard they were doing Dark Phoenix, I had absolutely no interest in seeing this one. First of all, just because it was a follow-up film to Apocalypse, where I felt like, okay, well, they've already gone off the rails.
Yeah.
They've really lost what they were doing.
Same writer, Simon.
Yes, Simon Kinberg is now directing this. The writer of.
He also wrote Apocalypse. That's what I'm saying.
Right, he wrote Apocalypse, and he wrote the Fantastic Four.
But he did also write Days of Future Past, which was obviously
fair enough.
That was lifted from a comic. So.
Right. But the other thing is, it's Dark Phoenix. Well, they already botched the Dark Phoenix storyline once with X-Men 3.
Yeah.
Where they really had like a good build-up to it in the first couple X-Men films.
Yeah, X-Men 2 actually did a nice
good setup
for it.
Yeah. Whereas I felt like it hadn't really been, like they're going to reboot it again. Well, they haven't really set it up, and the other thing is that Dark Phoenix, the whole point of Dark Phoenix is having really built the Phoenix character.
Right.
And so to just say, oh, well, Dark Phoenix, that's a little bit like just saying, hey, let's just throw out a Justice League movie without first making films people care about all the other characters in the Justice League.
Right. No, it's true. But you saw how that worked out.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
So for me, this was just like the bottom of my list of anything that I cared about coming out, because I just didn't see any reason, anything to be excited about.
I wasn't looking forward to it on a different level. The story itself is kind of depressing. Dark Phoenix, And again, without the setup, but reading the comic book as a child, that just was a really tragic issue to read. And I know that Claremont, who wrote it, got a lot of hate mail after that too. But setting this up, I wasn't exactly thrilled because, again, the previous movie was so bad.
Right.
I didn't share any excitement towards it.
Or at least so mediocre.
Well, actually, watching it again, it wasn't as bad upon a second viewing. That being X-Men Apocalypse, but
Yeah, but it definitely had some bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But so not excited.
Right. So anyway, we went in not excited, and maybe it's partially a matter of lowered expectations. Yep. I was very pleasantly surprised. I really felt like this film hooked me right from the beginning. I found myself engaged pretty much throughout the film.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I just felt like there was a humanity about it that came through. That somehow it didn't feel as much like just like a corporate product as I'm starting to feel like some of Marvel's movies. are starting to feel like to me.
Yeah.
This really felt like there was some creative, somebody behind it that cared about the product and was actually trying to bring some humanity to the screen.
Well, the story itself is such a heartwarming and just a heart-tugging story to begin with, the Phoenix saga. Yeah. And so without having that lead into it, you're right. But maybe I feel the same way. I mean, I went to this movie thinking the same thing, and so I also felt pleasantly surprised because I just didn't expect it to be a whole lot of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I connected with Gray and how she was going through this transition and trying to hold on to her humanity and then trying to come to grips with that and understand that this is some amazing power that she suddenly is no control over. It was pretty neat. Some of the situations they got put into were believable for what it was, and you kind of felt a little compassion for all their friends and supporting characters around that, who still love her and trying to comprehend this. Because, dude, she was like, awarded the power of a god, basically.
Right.
And she's still Jean Grey, but just not understanding this. Can you imagine that kind of power, though?
Right. Well, and having difficulty controlling it,
right,
and hurting people that are close to you and that you love.
I also liked how the story kind of drew in characters like Magneto, who had just been, at this part of the story, he went on his way to get away from all things. So I liked how he was drawn back into this because obviously he had feelings as well, and some tragic events happen in this movie that even make that more obvious. That bands them all together and somewhat sets it up to where we have that same topic of human versus mutant. But I'm glad they didn't exhaust that overly because that kind of to me has gotten a little tiring. And but this whole story is about the struggle of Jean Grey coming to terms with this power.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for me it was so good because people get put into situations every day and don't know how to tolerate that or deal with it. That's why it connected to me. It's a superhero movie, but it just felt more than that this time around.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an interesting point. Again, for me, a lot of what worked is that the human angle was really there, and then that made it that much more exciting once it really delved into these action sequences where you had all these special effects and all this power, and the battle scenes were so climactic, because these were amazingly. You just felt how amazingly powerful all these characters were.
I liked the way the movie started off because in the comic book we always read that they used to always do their simulated fighting in the danger room,
Right.
So you got a chance to see in the beginning of the movie them working as a team. I thought that was kind of cool, and using each power to try to win a particular battle or something. And it was pretty neat to see that because we haven't seen that often in any of the superhero movies where Storm is brought in to throw some lightning on the object, and then I just think it was cool what they did with that. But I don't know how people are going to react to this because I don't know. Everyone's comparing now with the Avengers Endgame, and it was so well received. Captain Marvel was so well received. So I almost think that this movie has so much to live up to now. I just don't know how people are going to respond to it if they just get turned off by the entire, because it's not Disney Marvel,
right?
And because it is Fox. I mean, who knows? But I don't know. I thought it was a nice send-off. I thought it was a nice wrap-up of these X-Men movies with the X-Men that we know as of now with McAvoy playing Xavier, and
that's actually precisely what I was going to say to it. I actually thought that this was a nice way to wrap things up. I mean, I do have the minor complaint that it maybe wrapped everything up a little too neatly at the end.
Yeah.
But as you said, it kind of has to.
Endgame did that too.
This is the final one. And of course, my other, probably my biggest complaint about the movie is just the fact that they call it Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
Because if you've read, and to be fair, it's been decades since I read the original. Maybe it adheres closer than I think, but any memory I have of that Dark Phoenix storyline is quite different.
Oh well, yeah.
Than what I saw.
Well, first of all, we don't have Wolverine in the mix in this one, and yeah.
But again, that was for me a positive because I don't think you could have just pulled off Dark Phoenix in a movie. It's something you have to build up to.
Yeah.
So
it was a double issue.
So I appreciated what this film did. I just wish it hadn't called itself Dark Phoenix.
But that's them trying to draw in interest, because I think for comic fans and just alone, because I think Phoenix is Phoenix and Dark Phoenix is a really popular character nowadays, and I think they probably had to handle this in a way that wasn't so dark. The way it ends, I mean, I don't know. It just, there was a glimmer of hope at the way it ends, and if you read do it like the comic book did it, it's pretty tragic.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's why I was worried about seeing this as a movie, because I just remember
another downer film.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I can deal with another downer, and it's, thankfully it just doesn't follow to a T anyway. So I mean, I actually felt I actually left the movie feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And I can't figure this stuff out, how sometimes we like movies that some people hate and some people love movies that we don't like, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I thought it was a nice send off, and so what the future has with the X-Men, who knows? I really don't know, but I think for my 2 cents, James McAvoy was probably one of the best Charles Xaviers we could have received.
Yeah, they really...
Patrick Stewart, obviously.
They really pulled together top-notch...
Fassbender or whatever.
Michael Fassbender.
Fassbender.
I mean, yeah, just all together, they really pulled together a top-notch acting team for all of these first-class movies.
Actually, I think Sophie Turner was probably the weakest part of the acting part. That's the thing, again, I love her in Game of Thrones, and I think she was fine for 75% of this film, but there were a couple times where her range of acting wasn't as great, especially when you contrast it against such a great actor like McAvoy, He's an amazing actor. I mean, so
yeah.
I just think, but other than that, I'd be nitpicking at this point.
Right.
So, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, I think our thoughts are Dark Phoenix. To our surprise and shock, we both give it 2 thumbs up. And thanks for watching Slice of SciFi.
See ya.